go. Sorry.
I swear this works. This has worked.
What is the deal with Mason? He keeps changing sizes faster than
I'm gonna go get some rum.
It's the pop. Yeah, it's the Pop Mart opener all over again. I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Just completely in disarray.
Yeah, now we're losing some bandwidth issues. Oh yeah.
So have we killed an hour already?
And I forgot to do the fade thing again. So, welcome to the. Oh boy!
You guys have
welcome
no idea.
Yeah, welcome to episode number 60, lucky number 60 of the YouTube podcast, where we attempt.
60?
Yeah, it's been 60 episodes. We troubleshoot things on the internet for half an hour and then try and actually have a conversation about something that we were actually going to talk about half an hour ago. And Tim is talking, and I cannot hear him, so we might be.
He's just trolling us right now.
Yeah. So
this last half hour has been like the Santa Clara show when they tried to play With or Without You, and Adam needed about 45 to 60 seconds to figure out where he was supposed to start playing, and that's what we've just been through. You would think that they would know how to play With or Without You after all this time, but
I Chris Cesaro, Adam.
it happens.
I'll just defend myself a little bit. I have not played this podcast 6,000 times in my life. And there's more than 4 notes.
60, not 6,000.
So, your move, Adam Clayton, I guess. But
So we think we're doing a podcast right now, but technically we're not really positive.
right, exactly.
Okay.
Eric Bob G is watching us, so we know that there's at least one person who is going to hear and possibly even see most of this. Knock on wood. So the voices you're hearing, in case you're not aware and you're not watching, like Eric Bob G is at goodstuff.fm/live, is to my left as I look at it, but is Matt McGee. Welcome back to the show.
Hi, Chris. It's great to be here. I think we're here.
Yeah, and somewhere down below is Tim Neufeld. Welcome back to the show, Tim.
Hello from California. There is no end to love.
And diagonally, or beside Tim, in a growing and shrinking box that alternates between Larry's drum kit to full-on, full-face nose shot, is Mason, who's new to the show, new to the sites. Welcome, Mason. Uh-oh.
Hey team, how's it going?
Okay.
You almost
Scared
psyched
me.
us out too.
So when somebody's first time on the show, we spend a couple minutes just asking them how and when you got into U2. And with all due respect, Mason, I was telling Matt before you joined, my son is actually named Mason, and so it might sort of just trigger
one.
A response to like shout at you for not listening or go do the dishes or whatever.
Yeah.
So I apologize if that comes out on the show, the dad gene. But and you also look young enough to have literally just discovered U2 yesterday, but I know that's not the case. So how did you get into U2?
Thanks, Dad. Well, it's a long story. I enjoy telling the story because I always like the looks that I get from people. But it was Get On Your Boots. That was my first time that it clicked where I realized that U2 was a thing. And people don't like that because it's seen as their low point. But for me, that was my entry. So I'm kind of nostalgic towards that. And that was when I was 14 or 15. And that's just been a gradual... it's been about 8 years as a fan now, which is crazy. So, I had a cognizant awareness of them before that, but it wasn't, they were kind of like the Beatles, where I knew Ringo and I knew Paul and I knew John, but I didn't know them. So, I've been, but once I was a fan, I couldn't and won't stop. So.
Nice. So did you go, Get On the Boots, did you go forward from there and then backwards, or which way did you sort of go down the catalog?
I actually, the day after, because I saw the music video on like VH1, if any other millennials remember that, when it's a horrible channel, but I saw it on VH1, and then the very next day I got my very first iPod, which is a rite of passage for people like me. And that was just the first song that I could think of. So I had it, and I bought it off the iTunes store. And I think I went back to How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb because Vertigo sounded familiar. And then from there, I bought War. And that was the first album that I listened to all the way through. So very nostalgic towards it.
Nice. This feels like we could spend an hour just like dissecting the origins of how a millennial gets into U2, but I do have lots of questions.
It's not easy.
The Get on the it's interesting though. The Get on Your Boots was, and in particular the video was the one because it often with U2 fans, as you're well aware, as you said, is kind of derided and not really looked as highly upon in contrast to other videos and stuff. But that's cool. So there's at least one. Have you met other fans that are of that vintage Get on Your Boots sort of entry point?
I've been spit on a few times, but no, I haven't met anybody who even likes Get on Your Boots. So that would be a first. So,
Tim, you do?
I love the song. I love the song.
I'm trying to think of who was on that episode.
Okay,
we did.
I have no problem with that song.
There we go.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Future needs a big kiss. The song needs a big kiss.
Yeah.
I love that. That is the line. Yeah.
Exactly. It's only a man of faith who will freely admit that he likes Get on Your Boots. I feel like we have to recognize that.
I'm secure in my masculinity. I'm
Yeah,
wearing my sexy boots right now.
Mm-hmm.
For those not able to see, Tim actually just did a bicycle kick up in the air to show us his boots. So you just have to watch the video version to see that later. All right, we'll save the deep dive on Mason's U2 fandom for another episode. But welcome to the show and welcome to the sites. And this week, just where we are 2 days ago, U2 played just a quick bit of news and recent happenings. U2 played on Jimmy Kimmel Live. Played I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For with the spontaneous air quotes choir in the audience that popped up, and also the little things that give you away. Just curious what you guys thought of the performance, and maybe starting with whatever. I'll just say Matt. I don't know who's left and right anymore, but
with the I love when they they all get together on TV like that, and I thought I was so happy for our staffer Sherry because they actually spent like quality time talking about the Dalton brothers, and Jimmy Kimmel had a photo. He had a photo that I'd never even seen of the Dalton brothers, so I don't even know where that picture came from. And then when Bono sang, that little bit of Lucille on the couch, I was like, oh my gosh, Sherry is probably beside herself right now. She's got to be in heaven. And so I thought it was really good. The performances I thought were great. They had the gospel choir, so I Still Haven't Found was very reminiscent of the Rattle and Hum version, which I remember back in a previous part of my fandom I was kind of tired of hearing, but I kind of welcome it these days. And I thought the little things sounded fantastic in the Kimmel studio. What do you guys think?
I was particularly satisfied because I was there November 18th, 1987 to not see the Daltons or not pay attention to the Daltons. And
you and I were in the You and I were in the stadium together long before we knew each other.
Mason, where were you? Did you? Sorry, I'm just trying to make them feel old, not.
So
I was 8 years in development, so.
Yeah, and that was really, really fulfilling to hear a bit about the Daltons and to see the picture. And how does Kimmel come up with that stuff? Because even the band didn't recognize that picture or know of that picture. So that was really fun to see that. I thought Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For did exactly what it should do in a place like that. And it surprised me because I didn't know. I stayed off of Twitter, and we're on the West Coast, so we get the late feed and all that, even though it's filmed here on the West Coast. But wow, that was cool to see the choir pop up out of the audience. That was what Willie Williams will try to do with the light in a show at that point and get the audience involved. And there they are. They're just doing it right in the studio. I love Bono just backing out and kind of, doing this to the audience and giving it to them. And I couldn't even tell who was the choir and who was the audience. It was that kind of seamless and blended together. It was a great moment, I thought, for them. And they looked like they were having fun.
Do you think they'll inspired by that or motivated by that, they'll bring the choir on tour at all? I was wondering if they might just drag them out for a couple shows somehow.
Yeah, my prediction is that they were going to bring a choir out in each of their venues, but I haven't seen that happen yet. I think that would really be a fun piece to do.
Yeah. All right, and then late breaking just happened. I don't know when, but recently. It's worth bringing up
the Twitter photo.
Yeah, just for Adam's kimono, if nothing else. Adam and Larry spotted at Whataburger. Is that like a chain that's in Washington? Is it or no? That's somebody posted. I don't know.
A West Coast chain.
It's in Texas. I've actually. Yeah, I've been to Texas and I ate at a Whataburger and I couldn't be more impressed with their choice in junk food. They got good burgers. So
yeah, I kind of just want to stop and just like let's soak in the fact that Chris Enns just said Adam and Larry at a Whataburger.
Exactly.
Right? Like, among the things that you would think you would never say on a at YouTube podcast, that's pretty high on my list.
I think that.
Well, to be fair, Bono did go to In-N-Out, so it makes sense that they would go to Whataburger.
Yeah, I guess they're spreading the love around amongst the burger joints, West Coast burger joints.
Yeah.
But I wish they had maybe there's probably security cam footage of Adam walking into Whataburger with that thing on, the kimono on. I wish we just had a little bit of video of just how you do that as a human, walk in there with looking like he does, without giving any cares in the world. So,
well, it being Adam, we're all kind of wondering if there's anything under that kimono too. Because
you had to slip that one in there for sure.
Adam's the free spirit. We love you, Adam. You are the free spirit.
All right. Well, we'll leave it at that, anyways, and save the discussion of what's under Adam's kimono for a future.
Does it matter
episode.
that this is an all-male podcast right now?
It doesn't matter at all. We can have discussions about anything, including Adam's kimono. So what we're actually here for is to do a bit of sort of review and preview and Q&A stuff in light of the tour that's now 6 shows in. And so for the roundtable, we thought we'd just there's 3 of us who have been to a show. So Matt, Chris, that's me, and Tim have been to a show, and Mason has not. And so he represents the have-nots and we represent the haves right now, I guess. And I'm just barely slipping in there with 1 show. Matt, you've been to how many?
3 for me.
And Tim?
The first 3 for me.
Yeah, I got all 3 California shows. It's been quite a week. I'm just coming down from that.
Yeah, there is that. I know people in our Slack and just on Twitter too. There's kind of like a post U2 depression that hits a little bit it hit me pretty hard when I got back home. It was just like, and especially seeing everybody, almost pretty much everybody else I was just with then at the Seattle show together, and I'm sitting at home discussing with my Mason about cleaning out the dishwasher while everybody else is lining up to get in to see U2 and stuff. Nothing against Masons, but so yeah, I guess in terms of the sort of overall impressions after seeing the concerts and how it lined up with your expectations and all that kind of stuff in 2 or 3 minutes or less. Tim, maybe we'll start with you. How did your first show that you saw, I guess, and how did it line up with your expectations for what you're hoping it to be?
Oh, the expectations question. That's a good one. I talk about innocence and experience. When I went to that show, my expectation was I was going to a concert, and I kind of came out with a Broadway musical. It felt like. I mean, that's how different it was from what I expected. And I think there's an equal level of disparity in a good way on this one. I thought I was going to a good old-fashioned stadium rock and roll show, and I walked out thinking I was just part of some kind of film festival or something like that. It was really spectacular. And I tweeted at that first concert at Santa Clara that I went to, this is like sitting in a movie theater with 60,000 of your best fans. And it was, if I thought I was going to a rock concert, I was wrong. I was going to a media event, and it was just really fantastic. The 3 shows, I think they were all different. I got a really good sampling of shows because Santa Clara still had kind of the feel of that Vancouver thing, the initial set. And then we got to Rose Bowl. It really felt like it loosened up there. And then we got to Rose Bowl 2, and the set list changed pretty significantly towards the end of the concert. And so it was really fun to experience all 3 of those different venues.
Yeah, and how about for you, Matt? Same question, same idea.
Yeah, I don't, because I wrote the article on At U2, the 11 things that I think, and that was right after the Vancouver show, and I kind of wish I had maybe held off and written it after seeing Seattle and/or Santa Clara, because they seemed, they have first night nerves or whatever it might be, or just like sort of figuring things out still. But it was so different the second show in Seattle, and it was so much looser and just such a better vibe and better show. Whether or not that was because they were more confident, or whether that's because that's where all the international press was in for the Seattle show to do their formal official reviews. I don't know what it was. It was just such a different experience and a better show overall. And then Santa Clara was sort of in the middle for me of the 3. But overall, in terms of expectations, I didn't know what to expect, because I've never seen a show where they're touring something that they released 30 years ago. So I really didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what it was going to feel like. And Tim, I don't know if it was, you had a great comment, and I don't know if it was on one of your scopes, or maybe it was in our Slack or somewhere, but you sort of made this comparison to how, like, on a normal show, they are taking an album and correct. They're like taking an album and building, like picking the songs out to tell the story, something like that. Yeah. Whereas with this tour, they've got the entire album and they kind of have to build the story around it.
No, that's what I noticed right away. I think this is a really tough project. Like, as I started thinking about it, how do you create, because this band loves narratives, they love storylines,
right? So
how do you build a storyline out of an album? I mean, it is there in the 80s, but normally I think you'd plan a tour. You'd say, you'd sit down at your creative table and you'd say, what do we want to convey with this tour, right? And you'd build a storyline out of that, and then you pick your tunes to backfill it. But I think, yeah, that's right, Matt. I really agree with that. I think this time the album is telling them where to go, rather than they get to sit down and say, where do they want the tour to go? So when Bono comes out With or Without You, and he says, the songs write us, it really, really is true in this case. The songs are telling them what to do, and they have to build a narrative around the album. That's a very, very tough project, I think.
And that's kind of, Tim, you kind of alluded to this. One of the questions from folks who sent in. So if you're listening, you can send in questions, not literally right now for this episode, but for the next time, using hashtag #AskAtU2 on Twitter, and we'll grab those for a future episode. But at U2 Breathe said, does the Joshua Tree show feel like a spiritual U2 gig, or like a night at the movies? And it sounds a bit like you're sort of in one foot in one camp, one foot in the other, Tim, maybe?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's a spiritual movie. Yeah. It really, yeah. It's an embracive, inclusive. The other way I've compared it is, if any of you have been to Disneyland or Disney World, you got Soarin' Over California, that kind of immersive ride where you're sitting with your feet dangling off, and you got the huge screen and you're flying all around. And it's got that kind of immersive quality to it. But when you sing a song with 60, 70, 80,000 people, like I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For, it immediately takes on spiritual overtones, I think. No matter what your faith or background or tradition is, you're just standing there. I remember in the 1980s, I said something to a friend, and he looked at me kind of odd. I said, these songs feel to me like they're going to be the activist songs of our generation. And wow, here we are 30 years later still singing. They're kind of the Simon and Garfunkel of the previous generation in some ways. We're still singing them, and they've become these very traditional, spiritual, activist kinds of pieces for us, I think. So it's pretty cool. Doesn't matter if you know the person next to you or not, you're going to sing together with them.
Yeah, unless they're elbowing you with a beer in hand over top of your head and about to dump it on you, which may or have been happening to someone beside me, but that's just concerts in general. That's not U2's fault for selling beer at a concert. Sort of related to that, a follow-up from U2 Breathe was what's the difference between the IE tour and the Joshua Tree in terms of band, audience, and spirit. And I think, I don't know what you guys, I actually didn't see the IE tour at all. So it does feel a little bit odd just having that as the big focus. And, they sold a concert video off of that, which I have watched that, and then to sort of drop this tour in the middle of that theoretically, and presumably maybe going back to that in some form afterwards. They kind of alluded to it in a slightly different way. So, but for somebody who's been to the IE tour, I guess, and now comparing that show to this one, Matt, what do you, any sort of thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think the obvious answer is nostalgia, right? I mean, this is a nostalgia tour. There's no getting around that. It's a tour for a 30-year-old album that, as Tim said, if you want to, if you're willing to go along with it, you can see, yes, it does have relevance now to the time we're in now. But I think that's, that to me, that's the big thing. As I said earlier, it's a very different experience for me personally as a concert goer, going to a show that is celebrating songs I've been listening to for 30 years, as opposed to going to a show that is geared around an album that I've never seen live or only been seeing live in the space of a current tour. I would say one of the other differences too is the audience. And I think this tour is, because it is for the Joshua Tree, which, the whole world knows the Joshua Tree. I think it's attracting, a much more casual U2 fan audience, casual music fan audience than, if it would be if it were, the next leg of the Innocence and Experience tour. One of my coworkers was at the second Pasadena show, and this is a person who loved U2 through the 80s. Jumped off the bandwagon with all the changes of Achtung Baby and Zoo TV, hasn't listened or hasn't liked much of what U2 did, through the 90s and 2000s and since then, but went to the Pasadena 2 show because it's the Joshua Tree and loved it. And so, and there's nothing, it's okay for fans to, go in and out with a band. That person is still someone who loves this part of U2's story, and so they love that show that they saw on Sunday night. So I think it is quite different from, the IE tour for those kind of reasons. It's a different approach from the band side, and I think it's attracting a different sort of concert attendee as well.
Yeah, Tim, anything to add there?
How is it different? Yeah, it's completely different, and I think this is the only way they could have gone. And of course, they got such a great creative team. Again, U2 is far more than four guys on a stage, right? I mean, it's more than music. It's such a concept, right? So yeah, when they sit down to think about how are we going to do this different, here's the way I described it earlier. I think Innocence Experience is more like Zoo TV. I mean, it's just media overload, right? Just saturation, just hyper content kind of thing. I think the current tour, Joshua Tree 2017, it's more like Elevation, except in a stadium. It's very minimalist. It's very cinematic. It's really, really different. I just can't even put words to it yet, how different the concept is than Innocence and Experience, even though they both have a lot of media in them. But you get these, Anton Corbijn, just slow pans. There's nothing hyper about this until you get to maybe Exit. That'd be the only one. When you get to Exit, then you just have these kind of raging razor-like images, searing into your soul. But until then, it's just slow pans, slow motion, and movement, which I think is stunning. It's just stunning.
Yeah, it's hard to explain to folks who, just coming back home and people asking me about the tour or the concert, and just folks who aren't even U2 fans, but just, obviously appreciate a good concert. And it's hard to explain sort of the impact of seeing this thing live. When it looks, from photos, it looks pretty impressive, but it still looks like it's just a concert with guys on the stage and a screen behind them and whatever, right? And so it's hard to sort of get that across, that it actually is a real experience that is hard to replicate. U2 fans, Sharon just said, I'm enjoying this Joshua Tree tour better than IE. I like the songs better, which I think is fair. And that's where, if you're a fan of U2's hits and deeper cuts, I guess this definitely is the tour for you, because they're certainly bringing all those out. And one other question at Tim Jahar asked, is Bono playing guitar at all in this tour? If not, will he ever again? And how does that change the songs compared to back then? I wasn't at any of the Joshua Tree tour stops either. Mason and I are alike in that way. But I guess sonically, musically, from what you're hearing when you're in the concert venues, I'm certainly not missing Bono playing. I'm sure he misses having the ability to play guitar occasionally just as a thing to do on stage. But I can't speak for Bono, obviously, but just a place to put his hands and stuff. But yeah, sonically and musically and stuff, there's enough going on above the stage, below the stage, etc., that is filling in a space. And I just was amazed once again that 4 guys plus some sequencers and stuff are filling this huge venue with enough sound to make it feel full. And even in moments where it's just a piano and stuff like that, it's still. They're doing a great job, I guess. I don't know if Bono's going to play guitar again, but at least on stage anyways. We'll see, I guess. But any comments on musically how it's affecting the tour or the songs, I guess, as you would have hoped to hear them?
No, I agree with you, Chris. I don't think it's affecting. I mean, you could wonder how loudly his guitar was ever turned up anyway when he played. So
there's that one moment in Zoo TV where he strums up.
Yes,
and you get to hear that. I think in one, and so definitely they tuned it up for that when he was in the room, probably during the editing. They quickly turn it up. Okay, now he's gone.
Yeah, yeah. No, I don't think it has. I don't think it has a great impact at this point. They find ways around whatever sort of change or challenge that has come to them. So yeah, I agree with what you said. It's a great prop for him on stage. It's a great photo when he's got the guitar around his shoulders, but I don't think musically it has a huge impact.
He's definitely not wearing those black sweatpants or whatever he was wearing in Rattle and Hum. So that much. That was somebody at Charoff mentioned. I like the band's show attire on this tour. Bono's long tousled hair, Edge in jeans and sneakers. Do we agree? Which I wonder how. Go ahead, Tim.
You don't like the shirtless suspender look?
It works. It works for the right
fireman's
person.
Trousers. Yeah.
My wife loved that look.
I don't know.
Matt just threw on a shirt for the podcast here.
Yes. I usually sit here in my office shirtless, writing, editing stories. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You got the old man suspenders now because your belt won't work anymore, probably, like me.
Hey, now.
All right. Final question.
Poor Mason's like, why did I come on this show with these old geezers?
Let's let Mason in here.
No. I had asked this very question about the wardrobe coming into the show, because that's one of the things I think is most underrated about a tour that I think we should write up one of these days. It's so cool. Maybe I'll do it. Is the band's outfit. And like Adam, you've seen like these beaded like Navajo looking shirts, and Larry's doing his thing, and Bono's and it looks like he's in denim some of the time, and Edge, it looks relaxed. It looks like they're paying tribute to the original JT tour, but they're kind of updating it to be like Urban Outfitters chic, as I like to call it. And I don't know, I really like it. It's a good look for them, and I'll miss. I mean, hopefully one day we'll get the Adams Punk Band T-shirts again. But for right now, I like the sequins and the rugged looking wardrobe that they've chosen. So I'm glad somebody brought up the clothes, because I geek out over the clothes.
I normally don't get into the clothes, but I got to say, Adam looks phenomenal in the photos, and he's got these long jacket with a tail hanging. Adam's outfits are just. I'm like, who is dressing Adam, because he looks fantastic.
And it's a good point, Mason, because there's very little, if anything at all, that on a U2 concert stage isn't there on purpose and isn't there intentionally. Whether you think it's they sweat over every single detail or not, but as a individual, as Bono's not worrying about every single dust on the stage per se, but they don't do very much without some thought or intention when they're putting a show together like this. And wardrobe down to the socks even, probably. I don't think we've had any sock sightings yet, but I'm sure the Larry T-shirt Twitter handle is loving it, and all the other parody or whatever accounts that are following the tour.
I mean, after Underweargate on the IE tour, I'm just glad that we're looking at external clothes rather than underneath. But whatever.
I have a question for Mason. Mason, can you go shopping with me? I really need some fashion advice. I think you could help me out here.
That'll be a new Periscope.
You're coming to the wrong person, I think.
The crystal
my
changer.
shirt matches my couch right now. I'm not sure.
Do a guy a favor.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm the best person.
Okay.
You did some good shopping for your kids there, Tim. The 2 shirts I saw you had ordered and made. Did you have to pay them to wear the shirt, or they were willing to be?
They were willing to. So what I did on that is I did the back, and then I let them choose a phrase for the front. Let them choose a lyric they wanted to put on the front, and then that worked out pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, nice.
That's actually another whole podcast is actually, and maybe Mason could be a part of that, is how you get your kids into U2. Because right now my kids are kind of like, whenever Dad puts on the
It'll be a
U2
very
stuff.
short one, by force. That's it.
Yeah.
Just don't give them any choice. Clockwork Orange it, with the eyeballs and moving stuff. Yeah.
All right, I'll try that. I'll let you know how that works out when I lose my kids.
All right. I don't know what child services is like in Canada, but I can imagine you'll be fine.
Yeah.
They're very polite.
It's for a higher purpose.
Yeah. I don't care.
At U2 Runner had asked, did the crowd know all of the Joshua Tree songs, or did it feel like people only knew the hits? And I know, I'll speak for the concert in Vancouver anyways, it was kind of peters out as the album gets longer, or into the second side of the album for sure, in terms of what people know. But I was shocked. There was, I would guess they'd be late 20s, early 30s, a group of 4 guys beside me that were, they were smoking something, but also they were also really, really into a lot of the later cuts on Joshua Tree and certainly Exit. Just lots of shouts of enjoyment about how effing amazing the song was. And so who knows whether that was the smoke or the actual song that they knew, but there were lots of comments about how on fire the edge was and stuff like that. So
I would say it really depends where you stand too. Well, it depends where you stand, because I was in a group of kind of frat boys drinking beer who thought, yeah, this was a great rock and roll concert, and they were doing all the F and this and that, whatever. And boy, look at Larry, he looks great and all this. And then I went back about 20 feet and found a group of fans who really knew the material, and some of them were young. And we were singing every lyric from the entire album together, and I didn't know these people. And so there are these pockets that you get into, especially if you walk around on the floor, where people really do know every word and every lyric, and it's not just bound to the 50-year-old crowd either.
Yeah, I'll agree with what Tim said. It really is, because at the Santa Clara show, I was with Scott Peretta and Michael Cummins, answer guy, and we sort of had to move around because you get near somebody and they start talking too much during a song. But so you got to find where you're comfortable and in the right area. But I'll say, just generally speaking, there was nobody leaving the floor for the bathroom or food or drinks during the first 4 or 5 songs. But when it got to side B, that's when people started, occasionally going out. And I was listening to one of the Periscopes last night, so that would have been the Houston show. And right at the end, this just cracked me up. Right at the end of Exit, just another amazing performance of this great song, and everybody's just cheering, going nuts. And then you can hear kind of faintly on the Periscope, this male voice leans into close enough to be heard, and he says, "Hey, what's the name of that song?" And then this female voice answers back, "I don't remember." And I'm just thinking, how many people in the stadium don't remember? Like, there's probably a lot. And so I remember thinking, that it would be cool if Bono would spend a little time maybe giving the names of the songs out and maybe doing a little short introduction to explain, One Tree Hill is here's who Greg Carroll was, and here's why this song is important to us, and here's what he sort of does that now for In God's Country. He does a little spiel right before In God's Country, but I think nobody knows. No, I shouldn't say nobody. A lot of people don't know why the mothers are on the screen for Mothers of the Disappear.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's the story behind those candles going out? And I think it, again, I don't pretend to tell the band what to do. I just think that it would benefit the audience if there was a little bit more information for side B.
Do you think they're sort of, the band as a band, they're assuming a higher degree of fan is there than actually showing up, like you alluded to earlier, of just people showing up because they remember listening to Joshua Tree, but they're not like haven't been hardcore U2 fans.
That could be, yeah. I mean, that could be, or it. I don't know. I thought maybe when they weren't doing any of that, when they just played, Vancouver and Seattle, I think they just played straight through with like very little talking. I think it was. My thought was they must just want the songs and the album to stand on its own.
Yeah, that's
right.
it.
With no explanation, no story. Here's the album, but I think the audience would benefit from knowing these songs that maybe they aren't as familiar as the big hits on side A.
Well, they're always walking a fine line, especially Bono is, right? Between saying too much and too little, I really think. Because he gets critiqued all the time for yapping too much, right? And in fact, boy, really, I mean, that was really seen last night on Trip Through Your Wires when he just went on and on in the introduction and I think missed most of the video of what he was talking about, and that's Mrs. The Edge on the screen, right? Because the last few nights he's been trying to say, and here's Mrs. The Edge. Well, she's already gone because, he's talked so much through the song. So there's that side of it too, right?
Yeah.
And on the previous tour, S. Devlin would just hammer Bono for these rants and distracting from the beauty of the screen that was going on. So I wonder how much that plays into it too. Yeah. But you're right. It's a fine line. It's hard to know how much context to give it, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, Mason, did you have a comment? I thought you were jumping in there at one point, but maybe not.
No, yeah. I was just gonna say, like, we've seen in the last few tours that they like to accompany songs that people grandiose visuals, and they've like with Cedarwood Road.
They're going Skypey on us.
They've continued that. Watch.
Shoot.
Mothers that disappeared and still get a feeling for what the song is.
We kind of you're cut out for a second there, Mason. I don't know if internet issues are.
No, the compliment the songs, and it's just so even if people aren't familiar with Exit or God's Country or whatever the case, you still have a clue and something to experience it through.
We got the Exit video version of that, I think. some delay and stuff, but I think I gather that you're saying the visuals do complement it, even if they don't necessarily know the songs. It's sort of the track you were hitting on, I think, there. So yeah, which definitely is, I think, for people, again, like if you haven't, until you've experienced it, and even watching the scopes, I think you sort of get a bit of a sense of that, but it's, it gets pretty fuzzy and pixely, and the screen, like we've said, I think on the previous Periscope, or previous episode, when it sort of pans down for the start of Streets to the screen actually showing visuals on it, and you can kind of just hear this gasp amongst the crowd of like, holy cow, that thing is sharp, and how do I get that in my living room at home? Because that's like amazing clarity on this screen that's for 60,000 people watching. So go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, well, and then there's always the artistic kind of notion of wanting to leave it open to interpretation for 30 years later as well. Like you do want to give some of that context, but you want to leave it open to be reinterpreted today in however the next generation wants to interpret this song. So Mothers That Disappeared may not be about the original mothers in Central America, which, very few people remember anymore, the scandals that were going on and the, arms to Iran and all that kind of thing. But they can easily equate that to Manchester, where mothers have lost their children in an Ariana Grande concert. So I think that's part of the power of not giving it a whole lot of context as well, because those women could be standing up there with their candles being blown out for what just happened this week too. Mm-hmm. And that's powerful because if you locate it 30 years ago, you might lose a little bit of meaning for today. And I don't think they want to jeopardize that either. So it's a balance. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I was hoping that even there's, without going into a long discussion of it, but just that sort of, what would it be, geolocation, I guess, almost of the song, where when they're in Canada, there's a whole thing here with First Nations folks whose kids were taken away taken out into schools and residential schools and stuff, and all that kind of stuff. You can Google it and find out more information. But and I was hoping in Vancouver that they would sort of use some of that emotion to get a political message across that this is a thing that we should be all looking at or whatever, and taking that on the road with them wherever they happen to be. And it may be that they'll just use topical stuff that's current rather than trying to get too involved with any sort of local political stuff. As it's
but I love what you just did there, and I think they'd be very proud that just in one song we just talked about 3 issues. We talked about Central America, Manchester, and Native Americans in Canada, and I think that's the scope that they want to have with their music, is that it can be interpreted in all these ways. And in some sense, isn't that our job? Isn't that what we do at You too? We start breaking it down and making the interpretations. And Chris, you should do an article on the situation in Canada with Native peoples there. I mean, I'd love to see how you interpret that and apply that right there.
Right. If I ever get around to finishing anything I've written, yeah, I'll do that.
How many half articles do we all have laying
exactly
in our virtual desk?
Mason's already committed to writing an article on the episode, so we're good. Okay, some more just sort of practical stuff in terms of questions that came in. At Tim Jahar also asked, if I bring something to sit in on while we wait outside, what happens to it when we go in? Can I move it around within the GA during the show? And I can attest, at least from Vancouver, that when we were walking in, which was after the whole big debacle of just getting in the venue, where we nearly all the stuff that happened there, but there was just stuff left behind. Like, I think there's a lot of those portable chairs and
the pile.
Yeah, little tents and stuff and tarps and all sorts of things that if you wanted to just come afterwards, after the show has started, you could probably collect enough to go camping for a few days anyways.
Yep.
Because they don't, and obviously security with what happened in Manchester has been even more heightened. And so they're not letting people bring big collections of stuff inside the venues anymore. So plan to leave it behind, as it were. But
what I was bemoaning at Rose Bowl 2 is there was a big pile at Rose Bowl 1, and I thought, why don't they just let us use that pile from Rose Bowl 1 at Rose Bowl 2? And no, they can't do any of that ever.
I hope they do something good with that. Like, it doesn't just get thrown in a dump somewhere or something. You'd hope that people would see the
charity, right? Salvation Army, Goodwill, whatever.
There's a lot of ice chests and blankets and chairs and umbrellas in there that could be reused. Definitely.
Yeah. And also the other question, sort of part B of that, was moving around within GA, and I think that's what I was going to say earlier to what Tim was saying and did. Obviously, is definitely feel free to move around in there. It's not a locked. Well, I know that people were pushing past me, coming in, going out. We kind of locked in at Vancouver with a group of us at U-Tours, anyways, that were sort of in the same location. But it's a long show. Move around, see it from different perspectives. And if you're right up on the rail or something like that, you're probably going to be reluctant to leave because it'll be very difficult to get back there. And it depends on your personality, how pushy and persistent you want to be in some of those situations. But any comments on GA? And another question was just kind of related to, I know we often get, is where would you recommend people trying to, if they're the sort of if you're getting to one show, what would you want it to be in the seat? Would you want to be in GA? And then, any recommendations? So, I don't know, Matt, if you want to start us off.
The 3 show. I ended up in the same place for all 3 shows, which was GA and back near the front of the mixing desk where all the video and audio is done. And so I've only seen it from that one position, other than photos and videos that others have posted. I mean, I'd love to get up close, first 5-10 rows, but I'm not willing to sit in the GA line for 3 days to do it. Sorry, I'm too old for that. So I've only seen it from the one spot. So I can't speak to.
How about you, Tim?
I've seen it 3 different spots. So we were in the stand about 20 or 30 rows up at Santa Clara, kind of just past 50-yard line. So it felt really good to see the screen from there. We were looking over the tops of people's heads. That was fantastic. That wasn't the most expensive. It was the medium price seats. But that was fun. We went down for Rose Bowl 1. We went down into GA. We got there about 2:00 in the afternoon, and it was hot. It was brutal. But so I'm glad we didn't go any earlier. But we had a nice spot on the floor, right dead center screen, about 20 feet off of the tree stage. So my son, who's a drummer, could watch Larry, really see him well. But it is, I mean, you're locked in there. You don't move when you go that close. Like, people are coming in and out with their beers, but it's really, It's a hard thing to do. So we just stay there. We hunker down for a few hours on the floor there. And then the last show, Rose Bowl 2, I just stayed towards the back of GA. All of them were wonderful. But Matt, you can walk in at 4 or 5 o'clock and get a decent spot on the floor in the back of GA, right?
Yes, I think Santa Clara. In fact, I didn't walk in until the last couple songs of Mumford and Sons set, and I could have pushed up. I think, well, in fact, Scott and Michael and I did. We pushed up. We were probably, I don't know, for the first few songs, we were maybe 10 or 15 people back from the B stage. So, we had a good view of the first part of the show.
Yeah. So you don't have to rush. The only reason to spend all day there is if you really want one of those coveted rail positions. There's not as much rail on this tour. I would guess there's not as many linear feet of rail. And the real gem is to be kind of on the inside of that tree stage, I think, right on the rail, if you really want to spend all that time. And I have friends that did it. They had to go the night before, get their hand numbered, be there at 6 a.m. And depending on the weather, that can be a real ordeal too.
Yeah, for folks who aren't aware, I guess, and Mason, feel free to jump in with any questions you might have too, as far as the just getting in and all that kind of stuff. But there is a bit of an unofficial GA kind of organization that goes on amongst fans, right? If I'm not mistaken. Like Matt, we showed up late and just kind of hoped to saunter in and ended up in the Vancouver lineup issues. But there is a sort of fan organization. I've seen other folks who are there with their kids and stuff, and they get stamped, and then if you do want to, you can wait in line long enough to get on a rail. It doesn't seem to be that impossible if you're willing to do the time, I guess, right? And so anybody have any more specific details as far as how that all works and what folks can expect to see, I guess, when they show up trying to get in?
It's a little different in every venue, but the general procedure is that they don't want you staying there overnight usually. And so somebody's monitoring line numbers, and you go get something the night before, and then they say you got to be back at 6 a.m. to check in, or you lose your spot in the numbering. But that really can change from venue to venue too.
Right. So you're kind of like unofficially, again, this is not like venue security. No. This is just U2 fans, whatever, sort of self-organizing. And so you're at the mercy of whoever and so someone could make a stink about it and just get there at 5:50, 5:30 or something and get ahead of whatever. And so, that's just the nature of the beast, I guess. But I know I've seen, lots of folks who I sort of followed on Twitter or various places sort of through the line and stuff and ending up with really good spots if they're hoping to get, catch a bit of Larry's sweat or whatever, and able to do that. And like Sherry had said on our Periscope last episode, she stood way at the back of GA and just took in the show, just being a bit on the less tall side of things. And able to sort of take it all in from back there and not have to worry about some 7-foot monster in front of her or whatever that's blocking her view of everything. Because like we said, the first, depending on how many songs they do, the first 3 to 5 songs there's no screen. Basically, there's stuff on the screen sometimes, but not really any of the band. And so you're not seeing the band unless you can have a sight line to the B stage or the Joshua Tree stage. So how about you, Mason? What's your you're going to which concerts?
I'm going to be going to Pittsburgh coming up soon, and then the first MetLife show. And with Pittsburgh, I'm taking my parents to their first show. Oh, nice. And my dad's 6 foot. Yeah, it should be awesome. My dad's 6'2" and my mom's not. So she's very short. So we're going to go a couple days early, and I'll be one of those dopes getting up at 5 a.m. And thankfully I'm about a half mile from, not even that, from the stadium, our hotel. So I'll go and get as close to the rail as I can. So just so she'll be able to see. So I'm still in that stage in my fanhood where just being close to the band is a thrill of itself. So I'm gonna try the GA rail route. So
nice.
That's an interesting comment, Mason, because I've taken the time to be on the rail up front, like for Dreamfest we were staring up at that huge stage. So that's another thing to consider on this tour, is that stage is way, way up there. It's like 4 feet, 5 feet above your head. And when you're in the front rail, you can barely see Larry at the back of the stage. So
Okay, good to know.
I want to warn people about that too. Don't just think that rushing to the front of the stage is going to be the way to go on this one, because you may miss some of the action that's actually happening in the band. We did that. We had that opportunity at Dreamfest to be on the rail, and we said, you know what, we've done that. We've been there, so we have no need to do that on this tour. And we just camped out in the middle, which was easy to get to, and we didn't have to spend a lot of time. So. Yeah, that's a great comment, Mason. About you kind of want to try it once or twice, and some people that's where they want to go all the time. But if you have more than one concert,
rail,
definitely try.
I had rail both
places
nights
if you have more than one concert.
Yeah, absolutely. I had rail both nights for their Madison Square Garden shows, and it was nice. The best. So by comparison, I'm not sure how much higher up the stage is, but the way I see it, if I'm going to be among the first couple hundred in there, if I'll get to the rail if I like it. I like it, and if not, then we'll, scooch back 15 feet or so. So.
Oh yeah.
So your parents are going to try and join. They're going to join you at the rail at some point or whatever, right? Is the idea, the plan?
Yeah. I'll wait in line all day, and they'll go have fun, and then we'll reconnect when it gets close to the show, and we'll go in together and get a good seat, hopefully, get a good spot at least.
So they can deliver you Starbucks and whatever throughout the day, and then just keep you.
I'm not a coffee guy. I have a natural reservoir of energy, so I think I'll be okay.
That's called being young, I think. That's
to be young again.
Yeah.
One of the best stories I have related to that is just met a person who took their 70-year-old mother to be on the rail with them at this tour, and that's and she loved it. 70-year-old mother.
Wow.
The miracle of orthopedics. I'm really wow.
Mason, you had a question. I don't know if you want to just sort of outline it, but as far as the production and how it sort of feels related to the band.
Yeah. One of the things that I love most about any tour, going to anything really, is the technical aspect of it. And the last few tours we've had have all been, groundbreaking in their own way. I mean, 360, it's the highest grossing concert tour ever, and it has the Claw, which is this behemoth of a stage, and then IE, of course, is the Cage and the Runway and the B stage, and I feel like those two complemented the show really well, where the band was still the focus, but from what I'm seeing in Periscopes and YouTube videos, and I have to experience this myself, so I can't, I don't want to cement my beliefs too much, but it seems like the screen is overtaking the show, if that makes any sense. Because we don't really see the band on the screen much, except for, correct me if I'm wrong, Exit. I think Exit's the only time we really see the band, and maybe one or something in the encore, but the rest of it's just pre-recorded visuals, and I feel like that might take me out of it. So I just want to get your guys' thoughts on how you think the marriage between the instruments and the images is.
I'll speak first just from the one show and the one position. Like Matt, I was near the soundboard area, and I definitely felt like similar feelings of where's the band in all this. And while being really impressed and blown away by the visuals, it did feel like it was harder. And I'm 6 foot and change, and so I was able to see them do stuff, or if they're on the B stage, if it wasn't on the screen. But it can kind of take away from, you're kind of just watching this, like Tim said, watching this movie with your friends almost, and not really participate or seeing that the band is it, because they kind of are locked. They don't wander as much as they have even on within that stage. Like Adam has his moment where he goes off to one side and Edge kind of goes off to one side, but they're pretty sort of, I don't know if rigid is the right word, but they kind of have their marks that they want to hit all the time, I guess, as far as where they're going to be. And so you kind of, and they do look really small compared to that screen. And so when they're not actually on the screen, it is tough to like sort of feel like the band is actually there and you're not just listening to a soundtrack almost for the movie that you're watching. And I don't know, I'm jealous of the folks who get to see it multiple times and then can also get into the multiple positions to sort of experience it up close or far back and all that kind of stuff. Because obviously I would assume if you're on the rail, you're very much aware that the band is there and they're playing as you're watching all this stuff, if you're able to even sort of take in the screen at that close range. But I don't know. What did you think, Tim, in response to the sort of production overtaking the band?
I think you nailed it. That can be seen as a negative to some people, or it can be seen as a positive, Mason. So the way I interpret it is very positively. You're absolutely right. The band is dwarfed by this screen. They are just infinitesimally small. When they walk off their island and up the ramp to stand under the Joshua tree, there's just tiny little silhouettes against that massive screen. And I think that really sets the tone for the rest of the concert in some ways. The only other song I can think of where they have live action, they do some in Running to Stand Still, I think, where they have some live action camera shots as well. But that's the whole minimalist kind of nature of this tour. It's not Innocence Experience. It's not Zoo TV. It is something cinematic. And the real appeal of this to me is standing with the other people on the floor experiencing this together. Chris, can the people who are watching this video, can they see the picture that you have as a background?
Yeah,
for
they'll see it.
This. So that's my picture from during Miss Sarajevo when the band turns and looks at the screen of what I've just blanked on her name, Momaima. So what you have
Momaima?
Momaima, yeah, and they have so the band gets silhouetted against the screen, actually looking up at the screen because they're looking at an image of her, and that's another really telling moment in the concert for me. This band is trying to. Actually, they're so secure in themselves later in life that they just don't need the spotlights on themselves anymore. They're turning it on the audience constantly. They're turning it on the image on the screen, whether it's Native American Indians or it's Momaima, Sarajevo, the new Sarajevo of Syria. I think it's brilliant. I really like it. I just like it for the experience of being there. And no, you're right. The downside is you don't get kind of that up close and personal kind of connection with the band. But I think that's pretty intentional on this tour too. Maybe it's not going to work for a lot of fans. I don't know.
Yeah, I've seen, some of our crew, and I've seen a lot of, people saying on Twitter that they don't like not being able, and I think U2 fan says in the chat there that I want to see them on the screen. But I agree with what you guys said. I do think it's wholly intentional. I don't mind. So you guys know this because of our Slack, but Willie Williams just agreed to do a little Q&A with us, and that's one of the first things I want to ask him is we don't see the band at all for the very first 3 songs of the Joshua Tree. It's all the films, and I would like him to talk about that. So that's going to be one of the questions we ask. I think my impression. And I'd have to compare some of the YouTube videos, but I think they are now showing the band on screen more than they did in Vancouver and Seattle. I'm not positive. I know that they don't show them for the first 3. They do show the band during Bullet to Blue Sky because that's when Bono holds up does the rattle and hum thing where he's holding up the spotlight and it's got a camera on edge. Running to Stand Still. You don't see them in Red Hill. I don't think you see them during In God's Country because it's just that multicolored tree. But yeah, it's I agree with what you guys said. I think it's intentional. I think it's designed to say that it's not about us, it's about the album, and we're here to serve the album.
So I think you're right about that, Matt. I think they actually are showing more images of the band on the screen, and I'm just trying to look through my pictures here real quick. But I almost think I remember seeing in the first. I'm gonna check that out. I think you're right about the first couple of shows not having them on the screen at all in the first few images. I wonder if they're doing some of that now. I need to look back at my pictures from Rose Bowl.
Tim, I did not intend to give you homework. So
no. Now you know me. I'm going.
I know.
Oh, dang. It's like number 23 on the things I want to, look up on this tour and try to investigate them.
Which, by the way, just a little plug for tours.atut.com is time to, if you haven't already, go update which shows you've been to, set up an account if you haven't already, and you can sort of track and compare how many shows you've been to, all that kind of stuff at tours.atut.com.
And can I give props to the Tours team real quick? Because there's been some discussion on Twitter, like new. Yes, they are amazing. there's been discussion on Twitter about New Year's Day, and because Bono is now singing the very last stanza, so we are told this is the golden age. Gold is the reason for the wars we wage. He changes it to oil in the concerts now. But our tours crew went back and re-listened to all of those early, just within the last few weeks, re-listened to all those early war era shows and confirmed that that line has never been sung before in concert. So that's the kind of thing that those guys do. They're Ross and Brian and everybody. They're just amazing. So anyway, end of commercial.
They truly are.
At PBear 1979, it was for fans of the pre-Vancouver rehearsals, is Bjorn, who was live streaming or periscoping, I guess, some of the rehearsals for everybody around the world. And he just had asked, what changes do you predict as the tour progresses, and what's your wish list? So we're sort of partway through, I guess, third maybe of the way through. I don't know if that's an accurate number, but somewhere in there through the tour. And what anything we sort of alluded to, maybe some of the visuals changing slightly as they sort of refine them. They've dropped songs somewhat or whatever. We'll see if that's permanent or not. Any wish list items that you're still hoping to see now that the show has come out, I guess. Mason, maybe anything that, just as somebody who hasn't been to the show yet, but you're kind of hoping for a song or something from when you get to go.
Let's see. They haven't played Acrobat yet, have they? No. Oh, okay. No. I'm somewhat happy. Like, I think I know what I'm getting into, and I know, like we've talked about and we've kind of complained a little bit about, is that they sort of taken a hatchet to the set list with cuts of Homecoming and moving things to the back of the show. And I agree with what Matt had said, that I do think they need to beef out the beginning of the show, because I don't like Sunday Bloody Sunday as an opener. I think that would be better served, maybe move to the encore, something like that. So, but as for songs I'd like to hear, I mean, they've talked a lot about how they wish they could have included on Joshua Tree, but I'll sing the praises of Heartland again, because it is that's maybe the most America, other than Streets maybe, but the most American song, like love letter to America, that I think they've ever written. So I think that I would love to get that to get its due. And again, I do think they need a more up-tempo closer than Little Things. Like, so maybe bring out Desire or something up-tempo, because I like ending on the I Will Follow after Little Things, so you do get the symmetry of the future and the past. But I do think the set list does need some work, and so those songs, I guess, I think could be good.
Yeah, I was hoping they'd do, and they still could, sneak in some of the B-sides or something, just like little playful moments, but it does feel like it's fairly heavily produced show, like we've alluded to Tim, saying, like, so which either is really awesome or just slightly inflexible, I guess, and even with Bono, talking too much and screwing up a bit of the video timing or whatever, those things kind of show a bit of the cracks in that sort of heavily produced arranged kind of show. So, but yeah, Matt, how about you? Any sort of wish list items that you hope is going to be revealed yet?
No, this is to echo sort of what Mason just said, and I wrote this in the 11 Things article. I do feel that there were 5 songs before they started the Joshua Tree, and that itself felt too short. It felt like I wanted a little more, lead in, a little more build up to Streets.
Foreplay.
And so I wrote, foreplay was the term I used in the article. You're right. And
Mark,
so I thought
explicit. Jeez.
Now we're PG-13 all of a sudden. And so I wrote, just like it seems like 7 or 8 would be better. Like let's build up to Streets, but they've gone in the opposite direction. So, I don't know.
Clearly
I'm not.
Yeah,
exactly. It means nothing. I'm not scheduled to see any more shows, so there's no point in me having a wish list. I'm curious about why they have shortened that lead time into Streets. I would think that more build up and more anticipation would be the thing, but apparently not. What do I know?
I will say, Mason, that I was really skeptical about the idea of Sunday Bloody Sunday as an opener, but it's really powerful in the arena, that moment, and you can sort of get that obviously when you're watching a scope or listening to Mixler or whatever, but just that moment of Larry walking out and kind of the minimalist aspect of that, of just we're in this air quotes club watching this band take the stage. But
I think my problem with that is more of the lead-in, because like I just discovered A Rainy Night in Soho, and I've fallen so deeply in love with that song. But it is a very strange juxtaposition to Sunday Bloody Sunday. Like I think a sort of Homecoming would be a much better opener from Rainy Night into they get the synths going, and they start off with that, and then maybe Sunday Bloody Sunday is their last song transitioning into the Joshua Tree. So like start off a little bit slower, a little bit easier with a kind of a smaller, beautiful, but a much less aggressive song, and then you kind of ramp it up as every song, like with every song, to lead into like this emotional release with Streets. So, yeah.
How about you, Tim?
You know,
Anything else?
from a thematic perspective, if just purely thematic, I think Sunday Bloody Sunday's brilliant choice to open with, because if you're reading the poems beforehand, they're all dealing with immigration and injustice, and I mean, it's got a list. They're heavy. Like there's got to be 1% of the stadium reading those poems, and they are like I tweeted, if we were really reading all those poems, like the concert starts with those poems, like for me. And so when we get to Sunday Bloody Sunday, I'm already kicked in the gut. And like when Larry comes on with, you know, the march, I'm ready for action. Like it just hits the ground running for me. So I love it. That's fine with me. But it works on a popular level in that it's just a fun piece to see Larry sit down and play the drums on. But yeah, I get that too, Mason, that, yeah, that's typically like, you know, their encore. So that's one of the ways they're mixing things up here. I think if I were going to ask for anything, which I don't mess with set lists too much. Like, I don't really care. Like, everything is so well intended on their end. I figure there's some kind of meaning they want us to get, whether we get it or not, you know, whatever. But I read too much into it anyway. Matt knows that. So, but here's a fun one that I would love to see done. And this totally wouldn't work. I get it that it wouldn't work, but I would just love to see them do MLK right into Streets, because that gap between those 3 years and those two tunes together just work seamlessly. They are flawless. They're in the same key. Actually, they're not in the same key, but I think they purposely start Streets on the album in the same key as MLK, and then make the transition into Streets later with the organ part playing in the background. So it would be really fun. I would love to see them, with all that reverence, walk up that ramp to MLK, and then the organ just doesn't stop. It just goes straight, you know, into Streets. That would be fun for me. I realize that MLK is a real yawner for a lot of people and probably doesn't work, but that would be, I would love that.
That's wish list. That's what it is.
That's the wish list.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I think without, I apologize. I think some folks are having some issues. I know Fabiano was trying to type in the chat, but it's not letting him for some reason. So if you're out there and trying to type into the chat room, I apologize. We'll see if there's some issues there, but we probably should start wrapping up the episode anyways, and before the folks start lining up for the next GA line, if they're not already in, is it Arlington? I think is the next episode,
Yes.
next show.
Yes. Dallas TX.
So we'll see if what burger joints they hit before the show or after the show. And if Adam's wearing a kimono or not. Well, he'll be wearing something. Settle down. But and
we don't know that for sure.
That's true, actually. Maybe they've started photo shoots for the Actung Baby 30th anniversary reissue right now. Well,
we used to have Adam's time to bathrobe. Now we need Adam's time to kimono or something, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So for folks who are following along and listening, where can they find you guys on Twitter or whatever social network you'd like to give out? Go with, where are we here? Matt, I'll start with you.
Oh, Twitter's the best place for me, at Matt McGee on Twitter.
And Mason, how about you?
If you have a pigeon or a dove or something like that, that'd probably be the best way. But email. We gotta
get Mason more active on Twitter. We gotta get him more active on Twitter.
Is Twitter where all the old people hang out, Mason? Is that what it is?
Yeah, yeah. Smokestacks are back. Like fires they're coming back.
Right.
So I didn't.
Okay, send Mason a smoke signal. Tim, how about you?
Yeah, exactly.
At Tim Neufeld.
And any Periscopes coming up?
Oh, always. I never know. The Periscopes write me. They sing these. So.
Oh my gosh.
I'll have to have some interviews with some Periscope fans who are like, here's my wish list for Tim's future Periscopes. We'll have a meta discussion about what did Tim mean when he wore that shirt without buttoning it up. And
there you go. Yeah. So, the band always says live is where we live, right? Well, meta is where I live. So.
There you go.
Okay. Oh my gosh.
You didn't. I shouldn't confess this, but I don't know if you listened to the episode a couple back where I accidentally referred to it as the Crystal Bathroom. You haven't sent me any angry emails, so I'm assuming you didn't listen.
That's the first one. Yeah, thanks for that.
Flub of the tongue.
There.
I probably had too much coffee and I needed to get to the bathroom. But
that's awesome.
Anyways,
that is totally awesome.
This has been the At U2 podcast. At-U2.com is the website. Twitter.com/ATU2. Facebook.com/ATU2com. In future days, future episodes, we might try and stream out to the old Facebook machine if we can figure out how to hook up all the smokestacks and things. And you can find the past episodes of this podcast at goodstuff.fm/ATU2. I think that's it for this episode. We'll be back actually sort of with a part 2 of this, in a sense, with some other folks who've been to the show and a couple who haven't yet, who I think are going to be seeing it for the first time in Europe possibly, and we'll see who all shows up. But so if you have questions about the show, anything at all related to the show, from the GA lineup stuff to where to stand to catch a pick from Dallas and all that kind of stuff, send it in, #AskAtU2 on Twitter, or send Mason a smoke signal and he'll relay that to me, and we'll get that on a future episode. So in the meantime, thank you for listening. Hope you have a great day. Adios. All right. And we're
Awesome.
clear.
Thanks, guys. That was really cool.
Yeah, very fun.
Sorry it took you so long to get in.
Oh no, that's okay. It's not you, it's the machine. And sorry, Fabiano, I don't know if you're still there, but he sent me screenshots of himself typing in the chat room, but they weren't appearing for some reason. So hopefully it's not.
U2 fan says here had to log in and then it worked. Sign up and log in, and then it worked.
Yeah, I think he was, but yeah. Anyways,
guys, I'll be right back. Hold on a second. Or say goodbye. Either way, I'll be right back.
I just noticed when you mentioned, Mason, the rainy night, and so I was looking up. I hadn't connected the dots that actually Elvis Costello was at the Vancouver show. He was just like in the little VIP area, and he was the producer of that song with the Pogues way back in the day. So interesting little whatever. I don't know if that. I'm sure it was kind of a coincidence, but hey, Becky. I think that's Becky. Yeah.
Becky's in the chat.
She had to log in, came at the end of the show. Nice show.
Had
she was
to
just
log
at
in,
Houston.
Came in at the end. Nice show. I love it when they say, I missed the show, but nice show.
Caught
nice
you.
One, Beck.
No.
I'm sure it was good.
So do we have a contender for episode title name?
Well, we haven't. When we switched over, actually none of the regulars who suggest titles throughout in the chat room don't. But did you catch something? Were you writing stuff down there in your
No, I thought that was like nominated and then
where
there's
we
a
live.
heading process.
There is, yeah. Usually we do. We haven't figured out in the new system here how we're going to do all that. We had it in the old system. So,
by the way, that is wild that you've got a Mason. I got to say, it's crazy.
Is it not you haven't run into too many Masons in your life?
I haven't met any. I'm Masonless. I'm stuck with myself. It's horrible.
There's two. There's another Mason in his classroom actually, which is weird for the first time. So
it's rising in popularity ever since I came into being. People are like, wow, want one of those. That's a pretty nice one.
The Mason jars down there.
Yeah,
There's
we have those.
A brand of So that's another connection. Anyways, sorry, we're putting Tim to sleep. So
I was named after the lawyer. So, yeah.
After who?
The lawyer, Perry Mason from TV.
Oh, Perry Mason, really?
Yeah, it's pretty fun. It was either that or Gunther, so I lucked out.
This just came off my printer, so I'm assuming that's for you guys, but it might be for somebody my wife.
You don't know?
You just have Chris just has random people sending things to his printer, which is always that happens in my I have the printer here in my office, and sometimes things just start firing up, and
well,
anyway.
All right.
All right.
What time is it? Oh, man.
Almost 3.
Oh, wow. All right. Got a Costco run coming up here. Back to real life.
Oh, would you pick me up?
What do you want?
That's my
Yes,
Twitter
I
line.
can do that.
Do they sell at your Costco? Do they sell the Coke from Mexico and the can?
I
the
don't-
cases of
Mexico?
Coke?
I do not know. My wife probably would know that. I know they don't have poutine here, but
If they have the case of Coke from Mexico, because it has its actual sugar instead of all the preservatives.
oh
that they-
right, yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
yeah. My wife needs a case of that. So
Oh, she needs that. Okay.
yeah.
So that Seattle doesn't get those?
No, we have them. I just haven't been to Costco in a while. So.
Oh, gotcha.
We probably have them. Yeah, it's the real sugar. Yeah, we got
yeah,
that.
Coke. With
I thought you meant like you needed Coca-Cola or no, that would be Canada, but I thought you
special?
needed it in Spanish or something like that.
How many do you need, Matt? Unos, dos, tres, or
Catorce. Yeah.
Oh, catorce. Okay. It's a lot. It's a lot.
All right. Thanks. It's a
pleasure.
I don't know who was there. A U2 fan, Becky, for popping in at the end. And Fabiano, if you're still out there, sorry you couldn't chat. And yeah, we'll shut it off for now. Thanks for watching, listening, and
Thanks, everybody.
Tim's got the music on. Wrong show.
I can run my own show.
Sleep like
here.
a baby. Sleep like a baby. Run.